McNair gives it to George, running right up the middle. Touchdown! Titans! There are no flags on the field! It's a miracle!
The safety, now you're one-on-one with it.
Shows why he's the man! In trouble. Sack!
Ladies and gentlemen, Titan Nation, welcome back to another episode. Today, my special guest is second rounder selected in the 2005 NFL Draft, our offensive tackle. We have the veteran Michael Roos. How you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing good, man. How are you? It's a
Pretty good, man. Pretty good.
nice Sunday.
What's up?
Nice Sunday. There's nothing wrong with having a cigar and have a little chat, right?
There you go, man. That's the best type of chats when you just kind of relax, chill, and kind of just go easy on like that. Like the shirt, by the way, too.
Yeah, same.
There
Thank
we
you
go.
for supporting us.
Of course. Let's talk a little bit about your career. Again, staying with the Tennessee Titans, which is a blessing. We got to watch you just become the best that you could be. Growing up, was it something that you always kind of planned, or how did that work? And where'd you grow up? You were born where?
Born in Estonia, Eastern Europe,
Okay.
one of the three Baltic states. No, I didn't know what football was. I mean, even when we moved to America when I was 10, I would occasionally see football, but I have no idea what it was. I think at some point I had mid-90s, a starter jacket that was either Niners or Cowboys.
Okay.
But
Which
I
makes
didn't know
sense.
what they were. It was only because it was what you got at Value Village, off the sale rack for $2. So I wore an NFL jacket, but I had no idea what any of it was. But
Yeah.
then as I got going into high school, then started understanding and watching it a little more and figuring out what it was, and then finally decided to play.
Definitely. And you went to Mountain View High School, correct? And you played several sports, including basketball, track and field,
Yep.
obviously football. Which sport did you kind of get introduced first? Was it basketball because you're right?
Yeah, so growing up, even in Estonia as a little kid, it's not surprising with what's in the NBA too. Obviously, basketball was a major sport.
Yeah.
So as a kid, it was basketball and soccer. And then as I got bigger, soccer was a little bit more difficult to pull off when you're 6'7". So basketball was always first love. Always like every kid, you think you're gonna make it in that, like, oh, I'm gonna go to the NBA. And there's always realizations as you get older with things, and you go, that's not gonna happen. So
And you were what, point guard? I'm just kidding.
that was the problem in high school. Yeah, I'm 6'7", so I'm a center, and was a pretty damn good one. But then at 6'7" in NBA, those are point guards, and I can't handle a ball like that. So it was an easy realization of like, that's not going to happen.
Was there a certain team you followed for basketball, or you just kind of just watched it?
Growing up, that was mostly Michael Jordan, like most kids in the 90s, and was a big fan of Hakeem Olajuwon with the Rockets, and David Robinson too.
Yeah,
just
big man.
main people I kind of watched a little bit of, because I grew up in Washington, a little bit of Blazers, Clyde Drexler and those guys, but overall there wasn't any specific team. It was just kind of certain guys. Allen Iverson was probably my favorite player when I was watching.
I3. I remember back in the day, I had the I3s. I thought I was the coolest kid in school because it was all black and stuff, man. But if you got the Shaqs, that means that your parents went to Payless and bought them for $20.
Yeah, I had the AI3s as my basketball shoes in high school. That's what I wore.
That's nice. Yeah, awesome. Now, when you got introduced to football, you played what, tight end?
Yeah, so I mean, I was the same height I am now, but I was probably 220 pounds.
Okay.
So skinny, little kid. And I was kind of in our offense, I was a tight end, but also slot receiver in a way. Like I didn't really line up with my hand on the ground very often. I would just be like the inside receiver because we threw the ball a lot and just kind of spread out. So it was generally just like a catching tight end, I guess.
Mm-hmm. And then they eventually moved you to defense and then went to offense?
The because I only played 1 year in high school, so that was the kind of catching tight end. And then in college, first year redshirt as a tight end, second year as a redshirt freshman was kind of tight end, defensive end. Played in a few games on both sides, and then sophomore year got moved to the O-line.
Nice. And what made you kind of just pivot your way towards football? Was it because of your height and just that fact that it was like you could do it?
So I was, like I said, I always wanted to play basketball.
Mm-hmm.
So I was always afraid of getting hurt for basketball, especially with football season being before basketball in high school. And everybody always tried to get me to go play. And I just was, I didn't know the sport much, so I had a fear of it. Didn't want to get hurt because I love basketball so much.
Mm-hmm.
And then the realization I had about basketball, which was playing on a really good AAU team out of Seattle before my senior year, and I was like 12th guy.
Mm-hmm.
Played a little bit, but we went to all those big tournaments in Vegas and Long Beach, and started realizing the other caliber of players in basketball that are out there. As good as I was in my school, it was like, yeah, I'm not at this level.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just gotta accept it. And 2 months before school is not going to change that. So that realization that, okay, basketball is not going to be the long-term thing. Maybe you play at a JUCO or something. Combined with when I was a 10th grader, for a little bit, I was on a JV basketball team. That coach is one of my favorite coaches ever. My senior year, he became the head football coach.
Okay.
So I loved him, trusted him, knew him. And so those two kind of combined were big factors. And then the last one was kind of put them all together. I just had this thought of like, I'm worried about it, scared to get hurt, blah, blah. But then I don't want to wonder what if later in life.
Yeah.
I don't want to be 40 going, I wonder what could have happened if I played football.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the final decision. I'm like, let's just see what happens.
Nice.
And now we're doing this.
There you go.
Many years later. So obviously it worked out very well, but it was definitely just see what happens. And I can't even say I loved football for the first couple of years. I didn't know anything about it. I just kind of kept learning it. So
was it hard getting adjusted to it?
Yes and no. I tend to adapt pretty well to things, especially when it comes to sports.
Okay.
The sports are very rules oriented, right? Like there's structure to the sport of, you can't travel, you can't hold, like all those things. There's parameters that you have to play within. And then even in football, whether it's offense, defense, you have gaps, where you're trying to go. There generally has to be a rule of how the field has to get filled.
Yeah.
And that, in my mind, works really easily.
Okay.
Like I can just visualize all that stuff really well and quickly. So it was tough physically to kind of start getting used to that and playing that way. But the actual like ins and outs and how the game was played slowed down faster than I thought it would. It still took an adjustment period from high school to college to NFL. Obviously, it's big differences, but I think I kind of always just in my head was like, well, just don't let that be a factor and almost ignore it. Just like just keep working, that kind of thought process of like just do what you can do, which is this is the plays and this is practice, and go do what you're asked, and then the rest will take care of itself or it won't.
Yeah.
But you can't control it, so why worry about it?
Gotcha. It's interesting. So then you went to Eastern Washington University, which was a big, everyone talks about it, going there, playing over there, and then your contribution towards that university, not only playing, but towards the field and stuff. Let's talk a little bit about your time at the university, and then we'll talk about obviously the stadium and stuff.
Okay, so yeah, so you mean just being there and playing there?
Yeah, just being there, the just environment, coaches, teammates.
Yeah, I mean it was similar to my high school of the basketball coach becoming head coach. So when I
Okay.
got there, I was, redshirt tight end and defensive end. There was some rumblings that I would hear that they were going to switch me to offensive line, which most people that are, a tight end or athletic, you don't really want to hear that because that means you're going to become the fat guy. And it was one of those like, I don't know what I'm going to do if that's what happens. But at the same time, that was about to happen. A guy that was a grad assistant O-line coach
Hmm.
who I loved became the O-line coach the exact same time I was turned into an offensive lineman. It's a
Gotcha.
similar kind of thing where like a coach that I respect and love becomes the guy, and then I get added to it. So it was a little bit easier of a transition to make. Um, and yeah, it was, I mean, big change. And over the summer, I put on 20, 30 pounds and
Wow.
come back from like, I think as a DN, I was 260 or something like that, and came back at 295.
Oh, wow.
And then, yeah, had training camp, and my first ever snaps as an offensive lineman that mattered was against Terrell Suggs in Arizona State.
Oh, geez. That's that's a hell of a name drop to have just to go.
And it was the year, I think it was his last year. It was the year he set the NCAA sack record. And he did have a few against our team, but none of them were against me. He just, he just was so fast that he would like chase a quarterback down from the backside of a bootleg or something, and just I think the score was 38-2. We got a safety. That's all we got.
Ridiculous. And that transition, how long did you start getting comfortable? Because at one point, did they put you automatically at left tackle? No, right? You were right tackle for a little bit.
No, college was left right away.
It was left all the way.
There was plenty of adjustment, but it was done obviously in the off season, so I had time to like go through the spring and everything else. And really, it's a matter of technique, right? I did the same thing from that first year that I did every year for the Titans too in training camp, where you just reset yourself as like, all right, not how do you play the position, but kind of like start again and like the basics. And that's what Munchak was so good at coaching that, where every Wednesday we would install the same run plays against the new defense, but it would start with the exact same 8 run plays that we ran your entire life, but it was retaught the exact same way, and the footwork was done Wednesday morning in practice the same way every single week.
Is that the reason why you became such a successful left tackle? Was just that iteration of just doing it constantly over and over and over again?
Yeah, because like I'm not a strong guy. I never have been. I think in most positions, and there's anybody can pick apart any comment I can make, but technique usually beats out a lot.
Okay.
It doesn't always beat speed, doesn't always beat strength, but I wasn't the strongest guy or the fastest guy. But if I stayed to my technique, I could probably get wins most of the time against all the guys I played against. And so I would constantly, if the game started going rough, whatever, maybe you gave up a sack or whatever, you just, instead of getting anxious and worried, you just go back in your head to like, well, make sure the first 2 steps are perfect. Your technique is perfect, the first 2 steps, and then play football from there.
Gotcha. And explain a little bit if someone who isn't familiar with that position of what like you mean by technique wise. You said the first 2 steps are important.
So if I'm, especially thinking about like pass plays, if I'm playing against, Dwight Freeney, Jared Allen, Joey Porter, those guys, as a left tackle, my right foot's got to stay pointed straight up field.
Okay.
And then my left foot's obviously the one kicking back. And if at any point, if my first 2 steps, this right foot turns, that end is going to be good enough to see, because what happens to your body, whatever your feet do, your body follows. So if your foot turns, my body turns, and now it's real easy for a guy to just go inside and sack the quarterback. So if you keep that right leg straight, no matter what, it keeps your shoulders here, and you going back kind of this way. And it gives you a better chance. If there's an inside move, you're now already going forward as opposed to having to turn to try to counter it. So something as simple as that would be just, I'd line up in a play and just, you think you're starting to get beat or the battle is going and how it's going and you're not sure. And I would just kind of like take a breath real quick, middle of the play clock and just go, just technique. Just do what you're supposed to and then let it happen from there.
And definitely coming from your type of play, where a player in your position, you kind of have to have just that reset, right? And not think about the next play. Say it happens where you let a guy go or he beats you to it. Because I'm assuming that's part of like the mental game for a lineman, right? It's just like, man, this guy might be a little bit stronger than me. What can I do throughout the game to kind of keep him?
Yeah, there's a little bit of a game in the game, obviously, with anytime you do it. But yeah, there's a play clock. It's every position. No matter what happened, you drop the pass or the pass is too long, whatever, as a receiver, or you miss the tackle as a linebacker, like the next play is happening. Yep. So you better figure out a way to, yell the F word real quick because you messed up, and then the play clock starts as soon as the play ends, and it's coming in. So get over it. Yep. Good or bad, you can celebrate it or be upset about it, but the next one's coming. So,
gotcha.
It definitely that's something I learned after a year or two. Probably it wasn't rookie. It was just your head deer in the headlights kind of thing. But you can't get too high or too low. Like the play clock kind of forces that, and it has really played well in my life. And like anything you think about in life, nothing is as good as you ever think it is, and nothing is ever as bad as you think it is. But like you got to kind of keep it that even keel. And it doesn't mean you don't get upset. Doesn't mean you don't celebrate wins, but like you can't take the time and energy to be too low or too high on any one thing, whether it's sports or life factors. Because same as the play clock, life keeps going. Like, because something happened, tomorrow's still coming. So whether you figure it out tomorrow or whatever it is, it's the clock's going.
Yep, it's going. That's probably the best advice. And you summed it up right there. It's perfect. That the time clock, regardless of what happens, you got to keep going. There's no time.
It's definitely made me seem to a lot of people, like not my friends and my friend group know me obviously differently, but whether it's interviews, whatever. Mm-hmm. I also have a deep voice, but more monotone, and it seems like I'm just kind of like I don't care, like I get that it can come across that way. Mm-hmm. Obviously, I'm not going to change who I am. But to the unknown person or whatever, if you see me one time somewhere, you might be like, oh, he's kind of like, oh, but it's because I'm not a rah-rah guy. But I'm also not going to mother F you. Like, it's just, I'm going to do my job. I'm going to do it really well. And you can follow me if you want.
No, I get, and I respect that, man. I get it and I respect it. And after doing a few interviews myself, I can kind of feel someone's energy and how they kind of go. And like I said, I don't think that you're dry or kind of like shortcoming or nothing like that. Like I said, pretty stand-up guy.
Appreciate it.
All right, let's talk about donating to jumpstart the school stadium project, which now it's Roos Field now, right?
Yeah,
that's awesome. And Matt Hasselbeck was talking about it. You changed the natural grass to red turf. Explain to the reason behind donating and helping out, and how does it feel to know that you have? That's cool, man. It's almost like the Little Giants, with those brothers.
The school's been in a very long process for years and years, like most small schools, trying to improve facilities. And as I was playing there, they had rebuilt the press boxes, which were like from like the 70s. They were ugly. Rebuilt those. Then when I left, they were trying to get the stadium, the field, to have more seats and kind of be more. It's still got a track around it, like it's old school, a small school. I think it seats 8,500 people, And for some of the bigger games, they'll bring bleachers in to make it like 10, 12,000. So it's not a big place, but they were trying to make a big showing of something to try to get more funding and kind of get the word out. And, how everything goes, it snowballs when you start getting that press. And their idea was to replace the grass out for one, but then instead of green turf, let's go red.
Yeah.
And so they had asked me and my wife if we'd be willing to donate to kind of help kickstart that. And we were like, yeah, let's do that. That's the perfect thing to kind of get the school talked about.
Yeah, definitely.
Plenty of people hate the red turf. They think it's disgusting and ugly.
Really?
But to me, it's like, okay, but you know where it is.
Exactly.
If I say Eastern Washington, they're like, oh, the one with the ugly red turf. I go,
But
you know the school name, so it still works. Like,
point.
But then, yeah, as soon as they put it in that year, they won the national championship.
I think you did it. You helped them out, man. That's awesome. I like it. Like I said, it's a cool and it's something that you, like you said yourself, it kind of puts it out there where people will know, regardless if they like the choice or not, the color choice.
And now it's been 15 years. It's been Roos Field.
Yeah.
And the name that was on it before was Woodward Field, and that gentleman had passed, but they had asked his family, obviously, if they're okay with it, being that we were donating money. And so they approved it, obviously, as you have to. And then now the school is trying to get a new press box built again, like, always trying to improve. And I know my name's not going to be up there very long. Like, I'm not dumb. I know how the game's played. Obviously, I took the name off, somebody else's name off. So if someone wants to throw in a bunch of millions at it, they're well within the right to want their name on it. So I definitely go to games each year, like, still look up and appreciate that it still says that, and we'll enjoy it until it doesn't.
Definitely, man. That's something awesome just to have. Like I said, something from Little Giants.
I saw the clip you gave me with Matt talking about, Seahawks used to practice there.
Yep.
When I first got to school, and this is what's kind of funny and weird about professional sports, because it's not college. People play 4 years or whatever. Mm-hmm. Professional sports, Tom Brady played 20 years or whatever it was. You can be a kid, Patrick Mahomes watched Brady as a 10-year-old and then played against them. Mm-hmm. So professional sports kind of let you do that, which is kind of weird. But I remember being a retro freshman, like there was no talks, anybody even mentioned I could ever play past Eastern. And yeah, we'd go to our training camp and the Seahawks would be, a week left or whatever of theirs. And walking through the halls, we're going to our practice, and they're going to the weight room with Matt and Steve Hutchinson and Walter Jones and all these guys that are, Hall of Fame legends. And at the moment, if someone would be like, hey, just so you know, in 12 years, you're going to block for Matt in Nashville, it'd be like, that doesn't make any sense. But that's what happened. And Steve was next to me. Like, I was blocking with Steve, his last year. Like, it's weird. It's fun to think about, but it's weird that can't happen.
It's crazy. It's crazy just to put that perspective, or just things that just kind of naturally happen, right? Like life kind of throws random things at you. And it's kind of funny though, because I had Jason Babin on, and I completely forgot that they were teammates. And Matt was telling me, like, he's like, yeah, you had Jason on. And I was just like, oh, like, and I was like, yeah. In the interview, I made it seem like I knew I was like, yeah. I was like, oh, like in my head, I'm like, oh shit, I completely forgot that, he played in Seattle with him. So that's wild just to know that, you blocked for to Matt. I mean, you blocked for several QBs, especially for the Tennessee Titans, man. We let's talk about that. Let's go into you get the draft 2005, second round. You get picked up for the Tennessee Titans. Your rookie year, Steve McNair was the quarterback, right?
Yep, Steve was my first quarterback. Yeah, his last year in Nashville. Yeah, one of the nicest dudes ever.
Yeah,
I definitely had. They had to purge a lot of the locker room for the salary cap reasons after the 2004 year. Mm-hmm. That's when Eddie left and Fred Miller and Hoppy stayed because he had like a year left on his contract. But there was a lot, Derek Mason was gone. Everybody left. So it was, I think that year, my draft, the Titans drafted like 11 guys or something like that. It was a large draft class. It was near double digits for sure. So it's definitely like we're bringing in all these young guys and see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
And so they right away put me with the starters in training camp, which I'm of course thinking like, okay, like same as everything else. Like, all right, I'm gonna do my best. That's all I can do. But yeah, sitting there like, okay, a year ago I was in Cheney, Washington, in a stadium that seats 7,000 people, and now I'm in a huddle in Nashville taking place from Steve McNair, who won the MVP 2 years prior. A little weird and a little different. So there was definitely some shocks like that where you have the thought, but then you got to put it out of your mind because you got to play.
Mm-hmm. And
But
did you start at right tackle? I thought you did. Like I'm like, am I going to
the first game I ever played was left because Hoppy was suspended for a game.
Okay.
So the first game at left, and then the rest of the season was right.
And what's it's kind of like an amateur question, but what's the biggest difference between left tackle and right tackle? I mean, it's
generally one of them is as a left tackle, you're usually blocking the best end on that side because most quarterbacks are right-handed.
okay.
What you're seeing now, which is you can look at it two ways. If you look at an offensive or defensive side, a lot of guys are putting their best ends on the other side now because of that. So like Bosa a lot of times, or TJ Watt. But TJ obviously goes everywhere, but he's a lot of times over the right tackle. So you could say that's a smart move by the defense, right? Put him against the lesser tackle, but they're not really lesser. But then you could have other, like I've had a conversation with Jared Allen here because he lives in Nashville and friends of, he'll get annoyed that if you're an end, don't you want to go against the best guy? Like you want the sack, but do it against the best guy, not the other guy to get the numbers. So you can kind of see both sides of it. But the biggest, I mean, it's not an amateur question, but yeah, I guess I see what you're saying. But really, the answer is also kind of amateur because it's simple but not easy. It's viewpoint.
Yeah,
everything is shifted. So now my left foot has to stay upright, and you're seeing the field and the entire game from this side of your head, and you're living over here as opposed to over here.
Yeah,
and so everything is flip flopped, and obviously footwork is.
It's key.
Probably the hardest thing to like reteach your brain when one foot is always up, pointing forward and trying to do and learn that really, really well. And now you got to flip it. But that's why you have practice, and we get paid money to practice. So
now you blocked. We talked about being in Tennessee, McNair. You blocked for Vince Young, Kerry Collins, Matt Hasselback, Jake Locker, Ryan Fitzpatrick, Zach Mettenberger. There's probably a few other people that I'm missing, and I apologize. But what was your relationship with each of these quarterbacks? Because I'm assuming Matt Hasselback said it. And he appreciated you, and he said, "Yeah, I bet you my wife appreciated him as much as I did because you're his protection."
Yeah. So there was the one that was probably Steve. I was a rookie, and Steve was a legend, and he was being basically kicked out the door.
Yeah.
But because of the chaos of rookie season, I didn't have a massive relationship with Steve.
Okay.
I was new, he was leaving. So, but he was I was a nobody from a small school, and like first team meeting, you walk in the meeting room, everybody has their seats. And you walk in there trying to think, where can I sit? Kind of going towards the old linemen, which are all, they're 29, 33-year-old men. And Steve, as always, was, dealing with ailments, and he had this like back issue. So he wasn't sitting in his seat. He was sitting in like the aisle landing area.
Okay.
And he was like, Michael, take my seat. So until they renovated that building, only two people ever sat in that chair. It was Steve for the first however many years, and then me.
Oh, wow.
So I never relinquished that chair because it was my seat. But Yeah, Steve was like, you know, he was like he saw it or just knew it. He was like, instead of letting me be worried and stressed, he was like, take a seat.
That's awesome.
Um, but yeah, everybody's. I mean, Vince, fighter, like fun guy, crack jokes. Uh, Kerry, old guy, right? He was the old. We just, you know, he basically call him the gunslinger because he was towards the end of his career when he came to Nashville. But it was awesome. I'm trying to remember the order of how it went. Yeah, Kerry and Vince, and then Matt came in. I think.
Yeah,
They drafted Jake.
Mhm.
Drafted Jake and then Matt at the same time because Jake was supposed to sit behind Matt.
Yep,
I think they should have played Matt one more year and let Jake learn one more year.
I agree.
I think because he was a first round pick, they had to put him in there, but I think everybody would have benefited from Matt playing as starter one more year.
Yeah, Matt said that the coaches felt a little bit more of a pressure that everyone else, their draft picks were doing good. Andy Dalton at that time, and he felt like they kind of like just pressured and put Jake in.
Yeah, and Jake, I mean, hard worker. Love Jake. He was a fun quarterback to play with. But yeah, he just needed like even a half a year. You know, like they named him a starter going into camp, and I think they should have done it later on.
Yeah,
like let Matt be the guy still, and let it kind of develop on its own. But you know, what's done is done. But Fitzy's. I mean, what you see on Thursday night on Amazon, and he's never not him.
yeah.
He is himself at all times. Like I've told a story before, and I think on a podcast even. We had a play. I think we were trying to run a 2-minute drill or something. We're coming out of our own end zone, and Fitzy kind of incomplete pass, something like that, and the guy gets close to him, and I think the ref was G instead of Torre, and he just looked at Fitz. He goes, "Did he touch you?" You know, they're starting to focus on the hands, the face, or whatever. And Fitz is like, "Yeah." So he throws the flag for a 15-yard penalty, and we get back in the huddle, and Fitz is like, "He didn't touch me." But he's like, "Let's go."
That's awesome. What about Metaburger?
Well, so I like Zach. He was a young kid.
Mhm.
He was not afraid to throw it, which was awesome because I think that was when Randy came too. Randy's last year.
Okay.
I'm trying to remember who all the quarterbacks were. There was somebody else was in there for a little bit, and it was just Randy wasn't being utilized. Like, yeah, he's older, but like it's still Randy Moss. And somebody got hurt, and then
Charlie Whitehurst, I think.
Oh yeah, maybe Charlie.
Yeah, Charlie.
Zach went in there and was like, "I have a Hall of Famer," and he just started chucking the balls to Randy. Like, he'll go hit it. Like, but Zach was kind of the opposite of Steve. Like, it was right my last year, so I didn't get to know Zach that well, or played a little bit, and then I got hurt, and it was done. So it wasn't there wasn't much of a relationship built with that one.
Now, who was your mentor when you first got to the team? Was it B-Hop?
Yeah, me and Hoppy talked a lot, trying to just pick his brain because, he knew it's his last year under contract. I was just drafted. Yeah. Same as Taylor drafted my last year, that's they're coming to take your spot. That's how the business works. It's, but so Hoppy and then Zach Pillar, left guard. Mm-hmm. He was massively helpful, as was that whole year I was playing right. So Benji Olsen was the right guard. Me and Benji hit it off pretty well too, and it was a lot of and he went to University of Washington, so he was from the area up there, and so we had a good rapport right away.
How was your staff-wise? As you said, Coach Munchak, offensive line coach, Hall of Famer. What did you think of his style and his technique, or what did he teach you the best? Because again, he was with the Titans for forever until he was a coach.
Yeah, so much like I said earlier, we would learn the same technique every week, and one of the things he said early on, and then often, for every new rookie class when it was coming in. But I remember seeing it my rookie year because Brad Hopkins is in his 12th year, and he's still doing the same drills, same technique. And he said it with everybody in the room, like, you're going to practice your technique till the day you stop playing. There's no such thing as perfect technique. You're always working on it. You will always try to master it until you're done playing. And as soon as you kind of realize that, it's not a negative, sad thought like, oh God, I'll never get it down. It's more like, be prepared and understand that you're always going to have to work and keep working at it so that you can be the best you can be. Right. So that, and then the other thing Munch did really well that I loved, he would pretty much never raise his voice for anything. He treated everybody as men, as equals. You came off the field and you messed up or whatever, and you go, what happened? And it's not a time to be like, oh, this guy did. No. If you messed up, tell him I messed up, because then you move on. How do we fix it? Instead of trying to like, oh, you're too proud to take blame or anything like that, you figured out pretty quickly that we can fix the problem and not have the same mistake happen. Because if you're too proud to admit that you messed up or like whatever, then the same thing might happen. Like, well, we can't have that. Yeah. Like there was I don't know if it was preseason or not, but we played Packers one time, and their 3-4 defensive end was one of the Jenkins brothers. Okay. It was big, and I'm getting off the ball, trying to run inside zone, and it's just like, so we come off the field because the play was a bust, and I looked at him, I go, I'm not moving him. Like, I can't move him, but I can get around him. So if you want to run outside, if you want to run outside zone, I'll reach him, but I'm not going to push him off the spot. Like, he's stronger than me, he's bigger than me. That's not happening. Basically, like, here's the information, and he'd be like, okay. And then he would tell the OC, like, call plays accordingly. This is not going to happen. Don't call that. And now if you call it, you're at fault, because I already told you I'm not moving them.
And it's kind of almost like a humble moment as well, because it's not really too much of you're being hard-headed or not, because I could see some linemen being like not accepting that someone else is stronger or beating them to
right.
Them, right?
Yes, that's the point. Like, because you're trying to win a game, right? Yeah. Not boost your ego or pride. So if you want to win the game, don't call that play again. It's that simple. And yeah, if you can't accept that, then you got other issues going on. But it's almost freeing to know that you can be completely honest, vulnerable, take fault, whatever. You're not going to get yelled at, mother F, whatever. It's just we move on and let's do something different. And one of Munch's sayings always was, early on especially, I took to heart, and again, it goes to life: make new mistakes. Yeah, you're gonna make mistakes. You're gonna mess up, whatever it is, a play, something, and you're doing something around the house or whatever. Next time, you still might make a mistake, but just don't make the same one. Make a new one, and then you learn from that one and make a new one, and it's how you grow as a man, as a father, husband, whatever. Definitely some of those things I've, since having Munch as a coach, has like been my mottos for life. Like, it's simple, but you just gotta do it. It's hard to explain.
No, I get it, and it's something you take from the football field and you can incorporate it into every game, which is good. That's again, I know you have a son, and especially teaching them the proper way of doing things and being okay to mess up on certain things. It happens. We're human,
Yeah, that's one of my biggest things. I have friends my age, or family members, or it doesn't matter who, anywhere around. You look at people just in the world on social media, there's a fear of failure. Yep. And there's this not understanding that failure is how you learn and grow. And that's, one of my biggest things. I'm going to harp to my son, and he's not old enough yet, but little by little, right? Yeah. Whatever it is, like, do it. And that's fine if you fail. We'll just learn from it and, do it a different way next time. But you can't, oh, I don't want to do that because I might fail. Yep. Is like, when I hear people say that, it's like a grinding, nails on a chalkboard. Like, what do you mean you might fail? Yeah, you might fail. You also might succeed. Yep. If you don't succeed, you'll learn from the failure, and therefore you actually grow, which is success. So, like, it's a pretty simple process, but
It really is.
it takes a mindset for sure.
It
But
does.
sports helps with that. So sports helps with that a lot, or at least it should.
Yeah, I feel like that's like nails on the chalkboard is when I get like an interview with a player and stuff, and they're like, "Oh, you're so lucky." Like you're so, and there's a quote that I always put because I love it. It says, "Don't call me lucky. I failed more times than you tried," and it's right there. It just says it right there. Like
Yeah.
anyone can do anything, and you don't have to be lucky. You just
Yeah. Luck is it's what you make of it. It's
it
a
really
dumb, a dumb term, but yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, just
is.
you fail all the time,
Mhm.
you actually end up succeeding by the end.
Yep.
If you don't quit.
That's you were number 71.
Yeah.
Why'd you pick 71? Anything?
So when I got moved to offensive line, again, Roos, you got to be the big guy, and like there's some ugly numbers. I think it's a very sleek, nice looking number. And when it happened both times at school and here, when I became an O lineman at school, the guy that wore 71 just graduated and left. So I got to get that number. And then when I got here, I had an option of a few numbers, but Fred Miller was just released and he was 71. So I was able to take that number. And it definitely, that number became for me like an identity. Like it definitely has become one of my favorite numbers. It just looks clean and looks good, and I like it.
Nice. That's a good answer. Okay, let's talk Titan memories. You have a certain favorite Titan memory?
That's one of those things where it had to be like a 2-hour session of talking about random years where like something else will pop in, right? Because it's hard to like pick, any one.
Mm-hmm.
Probably tops got to be when we got 2,000 yards with Chris.
Yep.
Just because that is, Chris got 1,000 yards, but it is the epitome of it's a team award. Like everybody had to be involved in that, and that year, just all those runs he busted off, and like that was a 16 games of just every time we call a play, like it could just be gone. And therefore, it made you like if you're in the backside of a play, you keep going. Like you don't know where he's back there. Like he, jumping around, and all of a sudden he finds a seam somewhere. So you don't want to be the guy on film later when they're like, "Hey, you started jogging here. Yep. Had you blocked them, it would have been 70-yard touchdown." Mm-hmm. So everybody ended up working harder and longer just to be able to see what happens.
Was it the best feeling just knowing like you blocking and all of a sudden you just see him hit like a spot and just take off? Like that's got to be a really good feeling, huh?
Yeah, and you can kind of sense it from who you're trying to block. Like I might not even have hands on him yet, but you're like going to block him, and all of a sudden he turns his shoulders a little bit, and you're like, "Oh, he's going." Because he should be like right here, but really he's already gone. You're like, put your hands up and go get ready for PAT.
That's awesome. Okay, so Chris Johnson, and that's such an accomplishment. Like you said, it's kind of a team thing, especially the offense. And then you saw it too with Derrick Henry and stuff. And it looks like the offense clicks, and it looks like the offensive line just plays a lot harder for that player. It's crazy.
Yeah, because you all want it. Like you all want it for the running back because it's such a big honor to get.
Such an unselfish thing, like unselfishness on which is cool. Yeah. What was your relationship with Taylor Lewan? Like you said, it was your last year. They drafted him. You kind of know he's going to be playing your spot. What kind of advice did you give him? What was your relationship with him?
I like Taylor a lot. I tried to help him as much as I could, as much as he wanted to. I think it's some video one time he made a comment where on draft night he DM'd me or texted me or something, and I never responded. And I don't remember that, and I don't have any. I can't see any text, but he's changed his number, so I can't find it anyway. But he obviously came, from a big school, first round pick. he was wanting to get on the field.
Yeah.
Which is great. Like you want that energy, but he was also in the best way, like a dog chasing a squirrel. Like he's just, like, what can I go? Do I go here? Okay, I want to go here, do this. Like he just wanted to get on the field, which is what you want, right? Like as a team, as a franchise, you want your guy to get on the field. And I know the team, the coach, and the GM at the time, they definitely wanted him on the field too. But at the time there was no spot for him, so they had to just kind of make him wait.
Mm-hmm.
But I've texted him over the years a bunch as he was playing. He definitely, he was like I said, dog chasing a squirrel, just the antics, some of the stuff, just very animated on the field, getting personal fouls, and then he slowly started diminishing those a little bit. He had, a wife and a kid, and like that helped him, I think, a lot. But he's a fiery dude, and you do want that guy. He's going to defend the quarterback, and I was never that guy for kind of the reason I said earlier. Like, right, nothing's too high or too low, and he's the opposite, but doesn't mean one's better.
Yeah,
if someone hits your quarterback or does something dirty, you do need some people to go in there, like,
hey, yep.
Yeah. So you need those guys, and we always had somebody in the line. Obviously, Country was that when we were playing. He'd be the guy to throw a punch, or we always called it a chicken wing because he was the best at drawing personal fouls too, because he would always get into skirmishes with guys and piss them off. Mm-hmm. And then he would, like, while jogging by, he would kind of literally hit him like under the chin or something like that with his chicken wing, and then just keep running. And then that guy would retaliate, and then there's the flag, which would piss them off more. And so he was very good at that.
Right. And that was another thing I think everyone wanted to know too. I usually do like a little where people ask from social media questions for the interview, was like your relationship with David Stewart. Again, Mike Keith was one of his favorite players, was David Stewart. What was your relationship like with him?
Me and Country were pretty tight. It's one of those, I'm a pretty introverted person too. But okay. Also, everybody always made the comments about Country, and, he wouldn't speak in interviews and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't really fond of that either, but I knew it's part of the job, so I'm going to do it. He didn't care enough. He would just give yes or no answers and just be like, that's your problem to deal with. They'd ask him how to go. Good. And then awkward silence. He doesn't feel it awkward, but they do. And then they would just stop asking him, and he was like, there you go, I'm done. So he's definitely an introverted person, but amongst us, linemen in our group, when we'd hang out and go to O-line dinners and stuff, very lively guy. He's a good dude.
All right. You retired in 2015. After football, what was your next step? I know we can talk a little bit about curling, because I always found that really interesting. Like, I didn't know anything about that. Again, I'm not from Nashville, so again, the word spreads a little bit more in Nashville. But talk to me about your curling adventures, man.
So to answer the first part, when football ended, our main thing, my wife and I, was go travel more.
Okay.
We'd always go, in July before camp, we'd go take some trips. But then it was like, all right, now we got the ability and the finances to just go whenever, wherever. So we just started going and traveling a lot. And then, Jared Allen went to dinner and drinks with him and his wife one night, 67 years ago now when it happened, I guess. And he had just started trying to curl because he had a bet going with a buddy that he couldn't make the Olympics, because he said, I can make the Olympics in some sport. And he initially was thinking badminton.
Okay.
And then he watched a little bit of badminton, and because as soon as he said that, I was like, no, you can't do that. That's way too many movements. Like, you're gonna break your knee, And so then he saw the Team Schuster, and those guys had just won gold in curling, and he was like, oh, we can do that. So he decided on curling, and then I think his daughter and Mark Bulger's daughter were in the same school, so he asked Mark. And then he ran into Keith Bullock somewhere and asked him. And then so when we were at dinner, he's like, hey, put together this curling team. Bulger, Keith, me, and like, you want to curl? And we're literally just waiting for drinks. And I go, yeah. I have literally never touched a curling stone, but yes, I want to do that. So we started doing that, and got a former Olympic coach to coach us, and like, it was a lot of fun. It's a really interesting sport. I haven't done it now since COVID, but I like it a lot. The chess of how you have to place the rock to try to score points is really, really intricate. And it's like putting on ice. You release that stone and you're a millimeter off here. By the time it gets down there, you're this far off.
Wow.
You have to be so precise, and it requires a lot of touch, which from basketball and even my golf game is something I always take pride in and have. So I was instantly into it. We did it for a few years, trying to qualify as a team, and then start realizing we need better players. These guys we did it because it's like, oh, these guys are 50 years old curling. It's like, yeah, but they live in Minnesota and they've been curling since they were 12.
Yeah.
We've been doing it for 12 months. So then COVID hit, and I was not about to go on the ice because you're sweeping and just breathing next to people. And then also that same year, my wife got pregnant. So then between COVID and then a brand new baby, I was like, I'm not traveling across the country going to do that. And then I just kind of fizzled it out. Jared's bet's still on, so he's still doing it.
Okay.
Then he started kind of putting together a actual team of curlers. So last I talked to him, I think he was at the national championships last year again too.
What about Keith?
Both he and I haven't seen Keith in a while. I know he's not curling.
Okay.
But both Jared and I are national champion curlers. He has a silver medal and I have a bronze medal.
Nice.
When we were at the peak of it, we both were the 5th alternate for 2 really good teams. Just for us to, we got to know all these guys through the curling community and played with them, played against them, practiced with them. And they invited, I was on one team, Jared was on a different team. They invited us to be their alternates at the national championships in, had to be 2019, I guess. I don't remember now. It was in Kalamazoo, Michigan. So I spent a week in Kalamazoo, Michigan.
Oh, wow. That's pretty cool. That's neat, man.
I did not know that I would ever spend a week in Kalamazoo, Michigan. But
there you go.
Like you said, life, you never know where life takes you.
Exactly. Let's talk a little bit about the shirt I got on, the shirt you got on, and how you got invested in this, because this was something where it kind of came out of left field for me, and I was suckered in. I'm like, man, I love it. Talk a little bit about it, because this one's for Matt Hasselbeck.
So, and the shirts say cooked. There's different variations of the logo we have. In short, getting cooked means saying yes, going all in. Okay. Like that's kind of the short, elevator pitch for us is say yes, go all in, get cooked. It doesn't matter what it is you're doing. You're the perfect example. You started this show and you're literally trying to get cooked. You're trying to grow it, build it, get guys to come on here. It's a perfect example of just whatever your passion is, you go in. You don't quit. You just go. So you want to go for a workout, you want to go play golf, you want to go play tennis. Like if you're going to do it, go all in and do it. Get cooked. The phrase originally was born on a St. Patrick's Day in Ireland 9 years ago. We were at a pub in Limerick, Ireland. Me and my friends always go during St. Patrick's Day. We used to go to Ireland to play golf.
I saw that.
And so one year we're there, and a couple of my buddies are taking a piss in the urinal, and there's this Irish guy, and he's just on his phone in the urinal, talking loudly, and he tells his friend on the phone, he's like, "Oh, I'm cooked as goat." And we come to find out it's an Irish term for being drunk. So we're like, of course, like, okay, that's now our slogan. So we've been kind of living that life and slogan for 9 years or so. Like we had a basketball team in a 3-on-3 tournament in Spokane. It was cook as goat, and like just whatever you can do, we would kind of buy some shirts, glassware, whatever, and just kind of been living that life. And then me and three of my buddies that are part of that group last year, about this time last year, we kind of started really mulling the idea of like, should we do this as a company? Because the logo's cool. We think the message is really good. We actually, the four of us were in Vegas last year for a cigar trade show in March.
Nice.
And had the company existed back then, we probably would have sold a couple hundred shirts. It's just, we're all wearing them. And as we walk through the casinos going everywhere, everybody's like, what is that? I need that shirt, like, and so we're kind of like one night end up drinking till like 3 a.m., like just going over this, like, do we do this? Like, are we going to do this? And we landed on no, because we're all friends. You don't want to go into business with friends, can be tricky. And so we went through a lot of like what would be expected of us and just kind of still landed on no. And like a month later, my buddy, who's the graphic designer, does all the logos and the website stuff, because he's got to do a lot of the bulk of the work. He just randomly, I don't know what happened, I can't remember. He just texts us, just like, F it, we're doing this.
There you go.
Let's do it. So got the company built, and we've been doing it very slow and methodically, just because it's friends going in with seed money, so we're not putting in 50,000 each. No one has that, so then it's a slow build. Whereas if you had that money, you could, we could fill our website with all kinds of gear and sell it as is. But for now, it's like, okay, you get some shirts on, get some hats, and then we got beanies coming out, I think, next week, and like we got hoodies recently, a week or two ago.
Yeah, I saw those. Those are nice.
They're super comfy, and it's like a long sleeve t-shirt with a hoodie. Like, it's super soft and comfortable.
It looked like it was almost like a dry fit, like hoodie.
Yeah, but it's super stretchy and soft. And we have a few more things coming soon. But it's like, you got to sell a little bit, get some money, and then get the new. We have ideas for going out really far, but you got to slow build it. So trying our best to get the word out there, get the brand out there. I got some friends that have, teammates, former teammates, some comedians, friends that have agreed to help, wear the shirt and try to help us get the exposure out there.
Definitely. My question to you, and then we have three questions. How did you get involved with Broken Lizard? Again, big fan of Super Troopers and Beer Fest and all that stuff.
So I think it was 2007. Kenny Amato, our long snapper, got hurt.
Okay.
And he was out for the year. So they brought in a guy from Buffalo, John Dornbos, who then went on to play in Philly for like another 10 years. And he's a magician, like just phenomenal dude. But John had met those guys through, I don't remember how, maybe doing a show or something like that. But so the following year, John's now in Philly, but all those Broken Lizard guys were coming to Nashville and did a show at Zany's, all five of them, like a little group comedy show. And John had texted me, he's like, hey, those guys are going to be in Nashville. Like, you should go, go watch it. I was like, yeah, like I love the movies. So get in touch through John and those guys. And then we went to the show and then went out after with them to a bar. It was, at the time in Nashville, it was called The Spot. It doesn't exist anymore. It was a private bar.
Yeah, Matt talked about it.
Yeah. A lot of time was spent there. Yeah. But we went there after the show till like, I think 5 a.m., something like that. And it was during the season. I don't know what night of the week it was. Maybe a Friday night, probably a Friday night. Mm-hmm. So then Saturday, just a walkthrough so you can kind of get your body right before Sunday. But yeah, we just hit it off and became friends from that night on. And that was, it's 18 years ago now, I guess, 17 years ago. And so I've gone to go see them in different places. For a while when I was playing, I did a charity event in Spokane that was golfing and bass fishing. Mm-hmm. And Lemmy and Heffernan came and did a little show there and like came and supported me. And then Jay, I think in 2010, he was doing a movie called Baby Makers.
Okay.
With Olivia Munn and Paul Schneider. My wife and I were unpacking from a trip coming back from Vegas, like at night at home, just unpacking, and he texted me, he's like, "Hey, you got a part in this movie. If you can make it be in LA tomorrow." And I was like, grab the clothes and put them in a different bag and
They're active.
buy a flight. And like, I can be, yeah. So he sent me the script, and there was like a couple lines in there. And then by the time I landed and got to the set, he was like, "I wrote you a bunch of more lines to like get some more speaking roles." And then, which was a fun experience for that day. And then, yeah, 2016, I guess it was, they were starting to shoot Super Troopers 2. And all of them, right? They're like, "Yeah, we'll find something for you. We'll put you in there." So me and Mike Otto, the backup tackle for years here, we flew over there to outside of Boston and spent a couple of days shooting some night scenes and did a gunfight scene and
Awesome,
got,
man.
got to throw Lemmy. It wasn't him; it was just a stunt guy, but throw him through a table, and it was a lot of fun. So yeah, it's those guys are they are who you see on screen, but also a lot more down to earth. Like they're just the nicest dudes. Like
Yeah, I'm man, who was it? What's the guy who plays Farva? He
Kevin
came
Heffernan.
Yeah, he came through. I work at the airport and they were coming through. This was maybe like 4 or 5 years, or maybe a little bit longer. This was right before they did their show.
Hmm.
And he came through and I was like, "Hey man, can I take a picture?" He's like, "Yeah." And again, he had the mustache. And when I went to take the selfie with him, he got like serious, like
Yeah,
he's just real nice guy. It was really cool. I'm like, "Hey, you guys doing anything?" He's like, "Yeah, we're about to do the show." And I was like, "Oh, cool." But yeah, they're real nice guys. And like I said, Super Troopers is something where it's so quotable. Like,
it is. And I know they're making a third one.
are they?
And I asked Jay, this is like a year ago at least, like kind of like, got a spot for me in there. And I'm not going to tell you what the plot is, but because of the plot, there's not really a spot for me.
Oh,
Yeah, there's not as many white people in the in the third one. So I was like, all right, that's fair. Like, it's fun just going to do those things because it's so intriguing to me just to watch the movie making.
just different type of.
The
Yep.
process, like all the true actors, like they do a scene, go back to the trailer, and I'm like sitting around watching the lights get changed and like just interesting.
Yeah, it's a definitely different experience. All right, before I let you go, man, we have uh 3 questions for you.
All right.
Usually ask. Here we go. Titan sister Amanda from Twitter wants to know who was the toughest defensive end you ever played against.
Dwight Freeney.
Okay.
There was a lot, obviously. Like I said, playing left tackle, you play against the best ends. But Dwight is, he's, I wouldn't even say arguably, he is one of the best ends to ever play. And having to play him twice a year was a challenge, but also a fun challenge because playing against
right?
Yeah, that spin move was scary as hell. And then he's also fast as hell at the field. And it was always a stressful game, but a fun challenge to try to take on, to try to play against them.
Nice. She has 3 cards. She has another one that says, "Which team did you dislike the most and why?"
Team that I disliked.
Yeah.
So that would be because of, I guess, players or just.
I guess in general. I mean, it could be AFC, South opponents or just.
Man, I've never actually thought about that.
I mean, maybe you didn't dislike anyone. I mean, remember the high and low, man. The high and low, you were just went there and do your thing.
I guess I have to go with like the Patriots because that was, the peak of their dynasty and they're just so damn good. And we're still coming with young guys and like trying to build back up, and they would just demolish us, and it was frustrating and irritating, and like you couldn't do anything. They made it look like they were playing against JV. Like that was probably Patriots.
You were involved in that game, right? With the snow.
Uh-huh.
I remember Mike. I had Mike Griffin on, and he explained that story. He's like, "I don't want to talk about this, but this is what happened," and that was rough. That was rough for him.
The only positive of that game was that was the year we got 2,000 yards.
Yeah.
That was like the 6th game in the year, or whatever, 7th, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But that was the first game in what was a streak of, I think, like 9 straight games for CJ having over 100 yards rushing, because we couldn't do anything else.
Yeah.
It was like we're playing in snow and they weren't playing in snow. We're slipping everywhere, can't tackle anything, and they're just gliding through it and catching passes. I think Randy had 3 touchdowns. Like, it was, we're on the sidelines, like, what? Why are we playing a different game than they are? Like, how? But yeah, it was it 59-0?
Yeah.
It was. I think it was 59-0. It was bad.
Yeah, it was 59-0. That was. And then our last question was: do you still keep in touch with all your offensive lineman brothers?
All no. It's one of those things where you do a lot together, but baseline, you're coworkers.
Mm-hmm.
So once your work is done, a lot of people, you go live wherever you disperse, and then everybody has lives. Like, we got text threads that get text sometimes, but like everybody gets busy with their own lives, and like it's just tougher to see everybody or even keep in contact. So there's some guys that still live here in Nashville that I see and text a little more often, but yeah, other than that, it's just one of those things where life, it happens, and unless you're neighbors and or have kids sharing schools, you're not going to see each other that much because they have their life with their kids and stuff, and then you got yours. And anybody else, most people, they think of it differently because it's sports, but if you have a job and you go to a different job, are you going to keep in touch with the 20 people you work with in the office? No.
That's a pretty good example. I didn't think about that, but
it's different because it's a professional sport. It's a game, but at the end of the day, you are still coworkers. In any given year, there's 53 guys, and that 53 is different every year. It's impossible to even have a relationship with most of them because defense is doing defense things, or then DBs are doing DB things. Like, it's, if you see each other, you definitely say hi and catch up a little bit. But yeah, it's impossible. That would be, for me, that'd be texting or calling and keeping in touch with a couple hundred people.
Yeah, you played your whole career in Tennessee, man. That would be pretty hard thing to do. Well, Michael, I just want to say, man, I did appreciate you stepping in here and having a conversation and coming. And your career was amazing. People in Nashville, I mean, you are forever cemented as Titan. And we appreciate all the blood, sweat, and tears you gave on the field, man. So
thank you, man. I appreciate it. I like what you're doing. I appreciate that. The show, keep going. Keep working at it. It's doing well. I like it.
Keep getting cooked.
Yeah, keep getting cooked. Yeah, for sure. Thank you, man.